Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, The Intimacy Lab. Tell me, have you ever been with a woman who once gave you her world, her laughter, her stories, her vulnerability, and then suddenly silence? No more good morning texts, no more playful voice notes, just stillness, and in that stillness, your mind starts running. What did I do wrong? Did I say something? Is she with someone else? Is this rejection? But what if I told you her silence isn't punishment and it isn't rejection? It's something much deeper, a test, a mirror, a moment of pause where she is watching not your words, but your response. Not the performance, but your presence, because a woman doesn't only listen with her ears, she listens with her body, her intuition, her sense of safety. And when she goes quiet, she's not always walking away. Sometimes she's watching to see if you will come toward her without chasing, stand firm without collapsing, lead without needing control. In today's video, we are going to unravel this silence not as a signal to retreat, but as an invitation to grow. As a space where a man either rises into his power or shrinks into his fear. Let's talk about what her silence really means and what kind of man you need to become when it shows up. So let's begin here. You're sitting with your phone in your hand. You've checked it 3 times in the last 10 minutes. Nothing, no reply, not even a scene. You know she's online. You know she's breathing somewhere in this world. Yet it feels like she's 1,000 miles away emotionally. And in your chest there's this tightening. It's not just frustration. It's that deep ache. The ache of not knowing, the ache of being unchosen, the ache of feeling invisible to someone who once made you feel like the only man in the room. You start replaying every last conversation. Did I come off too strong? Was I too vulnerable? Too cold? Did I text too much? Not enough? You spiral into this loop of self-doubt because that's what silence does. It doesn't yell. It whispers, and it whispers the loudest lies when you're most alone. But here's the thing, silence, her silence, is not always about you being unwanted. Sometimes it's about her needing space to feel, to evaluate, to breathe without your influence, and yes, sometimes it's a test. But not in the manipulative, cruel way you might fear, not in the way of, let me punish him. But in the way of, let me see him, let me see who he becomes when I stop being the echo chamber to his validation. You see, we often assume relationships are built through words, through declarations, through the frequency of our messages, but a woman doesn't only connect through language, she connects through resonance. She watches how you handle tension. She listens not only to what you say, but to what you do when she says nothing at all. That moment when she pulls away, when she pauses, when she creates distance, this is not always the end. This is the hallway, and most men panic in the hallway. They bang on the doors, they try to pick the locks. They push harder, text faster, call louder, thinking that love is about proving, when in fact love, real love, mature love, is often about waiting with presence, not reacting with panic. Let me ask you something. Have you ever sat with someone who was hurting and you didn't know what to say? But instead of offering quick, fixed solutions, you just sat with them, quiet, still, not needing to fix, just needing to be there. That is what many women are silently asking for when they go quiet. They're not asking for a rescue. They're asking, can you hold this space without needing me to fill it? It's a test of your nervous system more than your words. It's a test of whether you can remain grounded when she withdraws, not as punishment, but as protection. Because maybe she's afraid, maybe she's uncertain, maybe she's testing not your charm, but your capacity. The way a woman steps back is sometimes not a wall, it's a window through which she's looking to see if you collapse without her affection or if you remain in integrity. Now I want to speak to the part of you that feels helpless here, the little boy inside who was taught that silence meant you did something wrong. That when someone pulled away, it meant abandonment. You chase because you're afraid, not because you're disrespectful. And in that fear, you confuse action with connection. But a woman of depth, she doesn't want a man who reacts to her silence. She wants a man who understands it. This is the difference between the boy and the man. The boy seeks immediate approval. Tell me I'm good. Tell me you're still here. The man holds his own emotional posture. He says, without needing to shout it, I see your silence. I honor your space. I'm here not to fix, not to chase, but to witness. And this witnessing, it's not passive. It's an active kind of stillness. It's the strength to send one message and not follow it with 5 more. It's the courage to not check her stories to guess her mood. It's the maturity to not post something just to trigger a response. It's the wisdom to trust that if she's the woman meant for your depth, she will return not to the noise, but to the man who didn't run from her quiet. Because real intimacy doesn't panic when there's pause. Real intimacy knows that silence isn't absence. It's potential. It's the soil in which real connection is planted not by force, but by presence, and that presence starts with you. Not with her texts, not with her validation, but with your willingness to sit inside your own discomfort and not let it turn you into someone desperate to escape it. Her silence might feel like rejection, but it may actually be the moment she's waiting to see if you will choose respect over reaction. If you'll hold your center when the room feels empty. You know, we often talk about what women say, but so little is said about how women pause, and even less about what that pause awakens in you. That space where she steps back, it's where your deepest patterns start to speak. Because that silence, it doesn't just test your patience, it reveals your patterns, the ones you learned growing up, the ones you act out in relationships without even realizing, the part of you that feels unseen, unheard, unchosen. That's the part that gets triggered first. You might tell yourself it's just a gap in communication. Maybe she's busy, maybe her phone died, but underneath the rationalizations you feel it. That old ache in your chest. You've felt it before, in the moments your mother was emotionally unavailable, in the times your father was physically present but emotionally distant, in the relationships where your worth depended on how much attention you were getting, and now silence doesn't just feel quiet, it feels like punishment, like proof that you're not enough, but that's the work, that's the invitation. Her silence isn't just a test of her feelings toward you, it's a portal into your relationship with yourself, into your nervous system, into your emotional maturity. It asks, can you stay regulated when the woman you care about goes quiet? Can you sit with ambiguity without rushing to fill the void? Because the man who cannot hold space for her silence will always overcompensate with noise. He'll overmessage, overexplain, he'll say things that come from anxiety rather than intention, he'll perform. And performing might feel good for a moment, but it isn't presence, it's the opposite, it's control dressed up as love. Let me say this clearly, a woman doesn't feel safer when you chase her panic with your own. She feels safer when you stay anchored in your center. When your energy says, I don't need to possess you to value you, I don't need constant feedback to trust myself, that is the masculine energy women crave. Not dominance, not stoic detachment, but attuned stillness, a man who knows the difference between reacting and responding. A man who can feel discomfort and still choose grace. So what do you do in that silence? You don't sit frozen, waiting for her to reach out so you can exhale. You breathe now. You soften your grip on the outcome. You stop asking, what do I say to fix this? And start asking, who am I becoming in this silence? Because when you shift from proving to embodying, everything changes. This is the moment to lead not her, but yourself. You lead by becoming aware. Maybe you journal the thoughts spiraling through your mind, not to send them, but to see them. To take responsibility for your own emotional hygiene. You lead by showing up in your own life, by moving your body, by returning to your purpose, by creating moments of joy and structure and integrity that don't depend on her presence to feel real. And you don't do this as a manipulation. You don't post "look at me living my best life" photos just to trigger a reaction. You live because you are alive, because your sense of identity cannot live and die with someone else's communication patterns. And when you do that, when you step out of your old boyish need for constant reassurance and into the quiet confidence of a man who knows his worth, something shifts. The silence no longer owns you. Now, let me speak to the other side. Sometimes her silence is disappointment. Sometimes she's not testing you at all. She's retreating because she feels unsafe. And this, too, requires maturity to hold. If you hurt her, if your actions triggered her defense mechanisms, it's not your job to fix her, but it is your responsibility to reflect. Not to grovel, not to bombard her with apologies in the form of essays, but to slow down and ask, did I say something dismissive? Did I ignore her emotional cues? Did I show up as my best self? Or did I let my own wounds do the talking? And if you realize that you did, in fact, harm the space between you, you own it, not with a desperate need for immediate forgiveness, but with humility. You say what needs to be said once with clarity, accountability, and respect. Then you give her room. Because a real apology doesn't beg for a reply. It creates space for healing, on her timeline, not yours. But again, the work is not in her silence. It's in your response to it. Do you punish her emotionally when she withdraws? Do you shame her for needing space? Or do you honor the pace of her nervous system, even when it disrupts your own? This is where men become more than charmers. This is where they become leaders, not by demanding love, but by showing what love looks like under pressure, and that love, it's patient, it's self-regulated. It listens beneath the silence and asks not just what do I want from her, but how can I make her feel safe again without controlling her? Because safety, my dear friend, is not created through pressure, it's created through presence. When a woman goes quiet, what most men feel is absence. But what she's often giving you is a doorway, and the truth is, most people never walk through it. Because silence is uncomfortable, it demands that you stop performing, stop explaining, and instead start observing. Yourself, you see, silence is the moment when the mirror stops showing you her and begins to show you you. It's when the masks fall off, when your charisma doesn't work, when your clever words no longer land, and all you're left with is yourself. And if that self is anxious, insecure, or reactive, it will scream inside that silence. You will feel every insecurity like a siren in your chest, and that is the test, because she doesn't want you to be the man who only knows connection when she's pouring into you. She wants to feel you even when she isn't there, to sense your grounding, to know you aren't emotionally dependent on her response for you to know your direction. That doesn't mean she wants indifference. It means she wants sovereignty. That beautiful, rare quality where a man can stand on his own emotional feet and still reach for her with intention, not desperation. And maybe that's the part no one told you, that being emotionally available doesn't mean flooding someone with your fears and hoping they hold them for you. It means learning to hold your own, so that when you offer your heart, it isn't trembling in your hands. Because women don't only want passion, they want safety. Not safety that comes from pretending you're fine, but the safety that comes from you knowing your fears and not letting them lead the conversation. So when she goes silent, it's not just about decoding her, it's about decoding you. Do you fear silence because you've always equated it with abandonment? Do you jump into action because you think stillness means you're losing her? Do you try to control the outcome because you were taught that love is something you earn, not something you receive? Because when she retreats, she's not just watching to see if you chase. She's watching to see if you trust. Trust in yourself, trust in the connection, trust in the timing of love that doesn't always move at your pace. And this is hard, I know. It's hard when your heart is tender. It's hard when the relationship matters. It's hard when you've spent your whole life being told that if you don't do something, you'll lose everything. But here's the real strength, choosing to respond with curiosity, not control, choosing to hold the silence as sacred, not as a punishment. To ask yourself, what is this moment asking of me? Not, how do I get her back? Because if a woman pulls away and you rush to win her, then who are you when she returns? Are you calm, or are you addicted to the chase? Are you grounded, or are you still performing? Let me tell you something a lot of men don't realize. Many women are not just testing your love, they're testing your emotional leadership. She wants to know, can you hold tension without folding? Can you be soft without becoming passive? Can you still show up without forcing her to respond? These are the invisible questions her silence asks. And most men never learn how to answer them. But the man who does, he becomes unforgettable, because he isn't trying to force closeness. He's creating readiness not just for her, but for himself, because he understands that no relationship can be stronger than the foundation it's built on. And that foundation is not made of constant texting or intense conversations. It's made of moments where nothing is said and everything is felt. This is where presence is built. This is where security is tested. This is where maturity is revealed. So if you're in that space right now where her voice is absent and your heart is uncertain, breathe. Not to wait, not to prove, but to reconnect with yourself. Because when you stop fighting her silence and start learning from it, you stop fearing what it means, and you start becoming the kind of man who no longer fears love's pauses. In that man, he doesn't just hold her heart, he holds her trust. There is a moment always in every relationship when the fire goes quiet. Not because it's dying, but because it's learning how to breathe without burning, and in that stillness, one person pauses. The other person waits, and between the pause and the waiting, there is something sacred, the space where love is either redefined or revealed as something it never truly was. Her silence may feel like she's closing a door, but what if it's just her closing her eyes, asking herself, can I trust him with my inner world, not her body? Not her compliments, but her unspoken truths, because the thing is, when a woman goes quiet, she's often listening harder. Not to what you say, but to what she feels when she's not being influenced by your attention. Does she miss you or the comfort of being chosen? Does she feel safer alone, or is she craving a connection that doesn't require her to disappear to be seen? And maybe, just maybe, she's hoping you'll notice the difference. That this isn't a game, it's not a ploy. It's a moment of emotional clarity that requires a man, not a boy, to meet her there. You don't meet her by banging on the walls of her silence with your fear. You meet her by being the man who can hear what isn't being said, the man who doesn't punish her for needing space. The man who understands that love is not always a chase, sometimes it's a practice of presence without noise. So if she's silent right now, pause, not out of fear, but out of respect, respect for her rhythm, respect for your growth. Respect for the space where two people stop performing and start choosing, because the truth is, silence is one of the few places in our relationship where masks fall off, where all the patterns rise, and where you learn, who am I without the feedback loop of her attention? And the answer to that question. It shapes everything. It shapes whether you reach out from love or from fear, whether your next message carries warmth or panic, whether your energy feels like a request or a demand. When you understand this, really understand it, you stop treating her silence as a verdict. You start treating it as a sacred space, one that teaches you more about emotional safety than any romantic gesture ever could. Because a man's power is not in how he speaks, it's in how he listens, not just to words, but to the energy behind the absence of words. You become the man who holds, not controls, who remains soft in the face of tension, who learns to lead with integrity, not impulse. And in doing so, you become the kind of presence a woman doesn't need to test because she feels safe enough to return. Not out of obligation, but out of resonance. So breathe through the silence, let it sharpen you, let it humble you, let it teach you what no conversation ever could. And when she returns, and she will if the connection is real, meet her not with bitterness, not with punishment, not with questions wrapped in accusation. Meet her with clarity, with softness, with the steadiness of a man who knows that sometimes the deepest parts of love don't speak at all. They wait, they hold, and they whisper, "I see you, even here." And now, if any of this spoke to you, if you've ever felt the ache of silence and struggled to hold it with grace, tell me in the comments. Your story matters, your growth matters. And your journey into a deeper, more grounded masculinity, it matters to the people who will one day stand beside you, not because they need you, but because they trust you. So like this video if it stirred something in you, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to this channel, The Intimacy Lab, because here we don't just talk about love. We unpack it, we challenge it, and we help you grow into the version of yourself that doesn't just attract love, but holds it with reverence. Here's to the men who aren't afraid of silence anymore. Here's to you.